Today we might have a little bit of music in the background. I have some friends over and they're playing saxophone and harp. We'll be receiving some beautiful harmonies, and we're also outside receiving their beautiful music, so I'm grateful for that. Today I'll be talking about self-love and self-acceptance.
Songs of freedom fighters, protect the people from rage. You got to play this music, to keep the people from straight.
Something that I really love to highlight when it comes to self-love is that because we are all very unique individuals, self-love is going to look very different for all of us. In our life on this earth, we're going to relate to one another. No matter where we go, we are going to be connecting with other individuals, and we have either family members, we have people who are supporting us, and so we have to work together. Because we have to work together, I feel that it is important to understand how different we all are and how beautiful it is that we are unique. And in that individuality, self-love will look different for everyone. It can be challenging to feel self-love when your energy is depleted. It can be challenging to feel self-love when you are trying to relate to others and fit in. So I feel like it's very common for us to want to fit in or want to feel accepted and want to feel loved. When we are connecting with others, your version of self-love is going to look different than somebody else's version of self-love. Oftentimes I hear people say, or I even say myself, you have to love yourself. Although there is truth in that statement, everyone comes from different backgrounds and from different life experiences, different understandings. Everyone is looking through their own lens. You might look at someone and say, well, you really need to love yourself, and fail to recognize that perhaps that person is loving themselves. That can leave somebody questioning whether or not they're loving themselves because someone is telling them that they have to, as if they aren't already. Understanding that for yourself and understanding that for the people that you care about, I feel is very important. I see that understanding and that understanding as a form of self-love. There's many different ways that you can express love for yourself. Oftentimes, people might not understand that aspect of you. Everyone is a mystery. Everyone has something within themselves that only they themselves can see. That's really beautiful. I feel like it's a cause for celebration. The diversity within the world around us and within us and in our relationships is what makes the world so beautiful. Sometimes when we want to fit in, sometimes when we feel we want to be loved or accepted, or we fear that we won't be loved and accepted, there is a tendency to see what behaviors will elicit that acceptance and elicit that love from others. In that endeavor, you can get lost. It's not to say that doing that is a bad thing, because we learn from others and we grow with each other. So that's beautiful. It's important to see the ways that you love yourself truly and to celebrate the ways that you love yourself. Maybe you love yourself by waking up and making a cup of coffee, sitting on a couch and relaxing for the day. That can be a form of self-love. a time that you carve out for yourself to just chill out and get your day going. Now, another person might love themselves by waking up and meditating right away. That is what gets them into a state that they want to be in, that they feel relaxed and getting ready for the day. Although those two things are different, those are still both forms of self-love. It's okay that we express love for ourselves in different ways, and it's actually a really beautiful thing. I've learned that when we have acceptance of our differences and allow others to have this space to express their self-love in the ways that they do, you will be able to direct your energy inward more easily, and you will be able to appreciate yourself and appreciate others without assuming that your version of self-love is more effective or more desirable, when in fact you are you are within yourself. You remain within yourself, and that you see others in that light, and you allow others to also be in that light. So self-acceptance can also be a form of self-love. Accepting can be really easy when you are shining, when you are feeling amazing, when you're having a good day, when everything around you is amazing. But it becomes a lot more difficult when things around you aren't looking as great, when within yourself maybe you feel guilty, or you feel shame, or you feel sadness, you feel discomfort. All of these feelings might make it a little bit more challenging to have that self-acceptance and to have acceptance in general. I feel like it's important to acknowledge that in of itself, and also come up with ways to celebrate our ability to experience the full spectrum, experience the polarities, to therefore find a balance. Some examples of having self-acceptance in times where it's more challenging might be experiencing guilt. So if you feel guilty about an action or a reaction, it can be challenging to face that feeling of guilt. It can be challenging to look at that and say, I feel bad about that. Ways that we might ignore those feelings is, distracting ourselves, blaming one another, or blaming life circumstances, blaming things outside of ourselves. Maybe you're in an environment that isn't suiting you, that doesn't serve you in the ways that you wish it to serve you. You feel as though you've outgrown the space that you're in, and it is just the reality that you're in. It's just your current experience, and there has to be a certain level of acceptance of that circumstance or that environment. I found that when I've been in a space like that, when I've been having that sort of experience, I've had to do a lot of self-reflection. I've had to go and question, or I've just naturally started questioning things like, why am I in this position? Why have I come to this state, or why have I come to this environment? Why am I in this environment? And I start questioning how I got there. All those kind of like existential questions that naturally arise while you are living life. So when I've started to question my external environment, it always directed me back inwardly. It always directed me back to the actions that I took, the words that I spoke, the decisions that I made, and the thoughts that I thought that got me into that present moment. Once I started to look inwardly and reflect on those thoughts, those words, and those actions, I start to see aspects of myself that need nurturing, where I can give myself more love, more acceptance, more appreciation. Looking externally to validate yourself or validate the reasons why you do things, to make decisions even, and be self-serving or self-sabotaging. I started to see places where I haven't been allowed to feel the way that I have genuinely, or I haven't allowed myself to feel the way that I have been feeling genuinely. And there's many reasons why that might happen. Maybe it's the way that society is functioning. Maybe it's the way that you were taught growing up. Maybe it is something that you have gotten used to out of a necessity for being in the environment that you're in. So there's many, many different reasons why we might not have allowed ourselves to feel the way that we do. And we have suppressed our emotions or repressed emotions that can compromise our ability to have self-acceptance, because when you reject your emotion, you're not accepting yourself, you are rejecting yourself, or you are ignoring yourself. And although it's not that positive of an experience, that's where that growth happens. That's where we start to learn. That's where we're able to rise. We're able to see things differently and accept ourselves more and realize that being kind is necessary. See ourselves and say, you know what? Even though the way that you thought, the way that you spoke, or the way that you acted was ugly, or it wasn't very attractive, it came from somewhere. There was a root cause. There was a reason why. And it's not to excuse a behavior, but it's to shed light on the fact that we are learning, or we're on this earth to learn. We learn from infancy. We also lose touch with certain aspects of ourselves as we grow, and as we have to do things that we feel we must. We have to do things that we're forced to do, or we're guided to do, we're taught to do, that may or may not be in alignment with you, with your spirit, with your mind, with your body. It's all right to have these experiences, and it's a part of life. There is much joy and much beauty that surrounds. This is why I feel like nature is so important, because when we're embraced by the vastness of the world around us and the diversity within the natural world, not only are we able to breathe more and therefore open up our energy and our ability to receive love more, we are also given more space to express. We're given more clarity because the trees are giving us oxygen. The earth is receiving our negative energy. The toxins that we exhale is nourishing the earth around us. Sometimes people don't have access to those spaces, or it's difficult for them to be in spaces where they're able to receive that energy. And so it becomes this cycle, and these cycles and these repetitive motions become a part of the body, a part of the neurology, the function, the reactions, all of those things within our physical mechanism solidify these behaviors, and then they continue to repeat. That can manifest itself in a positive way or a negative way. That can manifest in all kinds of ways, infinite possibilities, which is beautiful. It's a cause for celebration, to be aware and to be kind to yourself, and to understand that you were once a child who knew not how to walk. You were once a child who knew not how to speak. Over time, you grew in your strength. You learned how to take a step. You learned how to express your needs in ways that perhaps weren't as complex as the ones that are present when you're expressing your emotions, because emotions are correlated to these life experiences, and it's a little bit more complicated to express, especially when you weren't taught how to express, than it is to say, I'm thirsty, I need some water, which I am. If you couldn't tell, I'm kind of thirsty right now and I do need some water. It can be so scary to look there because you don't know what you're gonna find. You might find things that you don't like. There is an aspect to realizing certain things about yourself that would elicit this self-acceptance that are in alignment with what has happened to you in your life. There is also another part where we have to take accountability. We have to say, okay, I'm capable. You have to build strength to get to that point, though. You have to be strong enough to get to a space where you're able to have that accountability. You can strengthen yourself by affirming to yourself that it's safe to feel the way that you do. And only affirm that if it truly is safe. Put yourself in a safe space. Only you know what that safe space is. You have to create that safe space for yourself, because what somebody might consider a safe space for you might not be a safe space for you. It might be a safe space for them, and that's amazing for somebody to know what their safe space is. But understand that you have to create it for yourself. So once you get into that safe space, you can start to strengthen yourself, and you can say, okay, this is why I have behaved this way. This is why I have acted this way. This is why I have been led to believe certain things that aren't 100% true. Therefore, I was acting out of alignment. I was acting from a place of mistrust or a place of pain, and that's okay. I can change. And you affirm these things slowly and subtly. You give yourself grace. This is a part of breathing life into that which you want to see and that which you want to experience. But it is also very important to make sure that you are actually breathing, that you are actually moving your body, that you are finding connections. It can be challenging in a world where people are desensitized and they're taught to disassociate. It's very challenging, but that's okay, because we can do it together. That's what we're doing right now. We're learning, we're growing, we're validating one another, we're validating ourselves, we're learning how to expand our awareness. We'll never be able to do that truly if we aren't breathing. Like, if you stopped breathing right now, you would drop dead in a very short period of time. That's how vital it is for you to be aware of your breathing patterns. Your breathing patterns are going to affect your experiences. If we aren't breathing enough or vitalizing ourselves with the breath in certain ways, we actually end up creating these negative circumstances and recreating these negative circumstances. When you think of breathing, you think of life. You think of thrive. You see the natural world thrive from the breath. When you were born, what was the first thing that was taken into account? What was the first thing everybody wanted to make sure that you were doing? Breathing, right? They have this image of like the doctor slapping the baby's butt so that it cries, so that you know it's breathing. Before you learned how to spoke, you took your first breath outside of your mother's womb. So before you even start to get into the depths of having that self-acceptance, be sure that you're aware of how important that is and how that takes precedence, because it will make looking at those places a lot easier. It will help you, it will assist you in looking at the parts of yourself and acknowledging those experiences in your life. If we were taught to respond to accidents or respond to bad behavior with hateful words or with negative self-talk, or just like being reprimanded with negativity, then you are being encouraged to speak to yourself that way. And those who reinforce those behaviors within us, we're also taught those things. It's helpful to be aware of when you're speaking to yourself negatively, when you're self-sabotaging, right? So you might accidentally do something, or you might not do enough, right? You feel like you didn't get enough work done in one day. And you might talk yourself down to the ground, to the point where you can't get up anymore, or to the point where you feel discouraged. And this happens so quickly. Our brains and our bodies and our beings are so powerful. They're so magnetic. We are one with the nature that is around us. So that is just reflecting how much power we have within ourselves. What we give our energy to is going to affect us. And if we were taught to give our energy to things that are not serving ourselves, that are not serving self-love, that are not serving self-acceptance, then that cycle will continue. Those neurological impulses will reinforce themselves within our body. One thing that I like to do is, when I realize that I'm talking down on myself, or when I realize that I'm talking down on another person, I stop myself and I reflect. I stop myself and I replace that. I acknowledge that in the moment, right? In the moment, I can say, that's not helping me. That's not a helpful thought. I'm going to relate it to my artwork. Let's say it's been a week. A week has gone by and I have not painted one time. For me, as a painter, that's a low blow on myself. That hurts, you know? And I'll say to myself, you didn't paint one time this week. You're not even a painter. You don't paint. You always make excuses. Instead of saying that to myself, I stop myself and I say, I love to paint because it brings me so much joy. I love painting because it allows me to open my heart. I love painting because my grandfather was a painter, and that inspires me. I find that inspirational. And then that allows me to lift myself up. It allows me to acknowledge that I was speaking to myself negatively and therefore reinforcing the same behavior, and shifting it into a space where I'm still acknowledging myself, but I'm saying something, that an affirmation that will actually increase the likelihood of me doing what I love to do. It becomes a lot less scary when it doesn't become such a taboo to see the aspects of yourself and to acknowledge them when positively reinforced. If you can do that with the people around you, if you can do that with the people that you love, not only is that going to nourish them, that's going to nourish you, and it's going to nourish all of us. We can encourage one another to not be afraid of those aspects of ourselves. And it's so challenging to do that even for oneself. Learn how to practice breathing, taking the time for yourself to release the tension from your body in ways that you know how, and you can learn new ways to do that, so that you get into that space of relaxation and that calm, that spacious feeling around you when you're in nature, whether you're somebody who likes to be on a beach or you're somebody that likes to be in the thick of the woods. doesn't matter. Find that space, create that space for yourself. Breathe into your being and accept you're beautiful. No matter what shade you are in, no matter if you are in the shadows or if you are in the sun, light shining, like all of that is necessary. I feel like this will open us up in a lot of ways, emotionally, physically, mentally, and allow for your creation in your life to flow more effortlessly. If we're locking up these emotions or suppressing our emotions, then certain manifestations or certain creations that we want to bring into the physical realm will not be able to fully flourish because of all this pent-up energy and our unwillingness or our inability or lack of awareness to open that space up, to really pull those weeds, right? So that seeds that are germinating or those buds that are blossoming have the energy. Because if all the weeds are taking out all that energy, then they're not able to receive that nourishment. If that was helpful in any way, feel free to like the video, share the video with your friends, your family. You can subscribe to my channel and receive notifications by hitting the bell button to watch more of my videos and to be aware of when they're actually out. So I really appreciate you for sticking around and for receiving everything that I've been sharing from my heart. As you are is exactly how you should be. There's nothing wrong with those shadows, and there's nothing wrong with sharing those things, but just make sure that you are becoming more aware of your breath.